is TW Wrestling Talk here. Um, Moving on in this second part two here of this pre-Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving week edition of TW Wrestling Talk. Um, we have Ryback here seeming to pick up momentum. Was Ryback impressive this past week on Raw? Did he impress you um, with what all he did? First you look at it, he opened the show with a short promo. Yeah, and he wasn't. It wasn't anything spectacular, but he didn't do a bad job. I thought. I don't think he did a bad job with this promo. Um, it kind of ties into his gimmick, so which kind of buoys, maybe him not having the best mic skills in the world, but he didn't do a bad job. I mean, the the Texan accent is a little bit apparent, which I think is, which to me is a cool thing, but he didn't do a bad job here. He held his own. Um, you know, I was thinking from he needs to come out tonight and kind of be ticked off and make it known that he's got some ass kicking to do, and that's sort of what he did, and he didn't do a bad job of it. I think he did all right. Again, it was a short, it wasn't anything spectacular or impressive, majorly impressive, but I think he held his own here with this promo. And then furthermore, they have him, with Vicky Guerrero, they set him up against Tensei again, um, who I think was important here for him to redeem himself against once they brought him out, um, because everyone was saying how he Ryback couldn't lift Tensei up that one night on Raw for his finishing move. Um, and I think what we got to understand about that is that you know the the technique of how he was picking guys up with that move, specifically someone like Tensei at 360 pounds, you're using a lot of neck, um, and not like trapezius. You're using like a lot of the back of the head and the neck for when you pick up a guy like Tensei like that. Probably wasn't the greatest technique. Now, when you saw him pick him up this time on Raw, you saw him pick him up more like in a fireman's carry position rather than a fisherman's suplex style, where you have to use more of your neck. Here, the way Ryback picked him up was the way he needs to pick up, these big guys in the future, like he was doing with two guys back in those days when he was facing two guys a lot, two little guys. He was picking them up like a fireman's carry, like an AA, like an F5, um, using more of your back and your legs rather than practically just the back of your head and your neck. I mean, as strong as Ryback may be, that is really bad. That can be really bad on the neck, and I can understand why it was difficult one night perhaps to pick up Tensei. Um, but he redeemed himself here because he picked him up the way he needed. He needs to pick up a big guy like that, and there's nothing wrong with changing up the technique a little bit for that to happen. So that was good, and it gave him a way to kind of redeem himself, to kind of shut up all the guys that, oh, he couldn't pick him up. He's not that strong anyhow. You know, I mean, he changed technique, but that's what he had to do to pick him up, and that was smart um, on WWE's and Ryback's part. So that was good. He redeemed himself there, um, and then at the end, he was, he had a good segment with CM Punk. I think CM Punk and classic Paul Heyman there. They had a That was a pretty good closing segment to Raw, celebrating a year of CM Punk being WWE champion. Um, and Ryback, he kind of crashed the party a little bit, as we all predicted. And what happened was the guys from NXT, um, CM Punk's cronies, they came out and they began attacking Ryback. But Ryback was fighting back. Fortunately, he looked good against those, the strength in numbers. He was he was looking pretty good, but eventually the numbers caught up with him, which, is all right, you know, and they put him through the announce table once again. They're making you know, pattern repeating here, that we see. And what does this do? It gives, it gives Ryback more reason to be ticked off next week and makes, continues this feud going, I think, in a good direction. Um, so, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these guys next week. I like what WWE is doing with Ryback and CM Punk. And now that Cena's now kind of off on the wayside, not looking to be facing CM Punk again for the WWE Championship at tables, ladders, and chairs. So that's good. That's good news. Looking good in itself. And unless CM Punk drops the title, has a defense before tables, ladders, and chairs, um, which I don't think they'll do. It looks like CM Punk is going to surpass John Cena's personal best reign of 380 days. Um, CM Punk, from this day, he's got 2 weeks from now to reach 380 days. So unless he defends and drops his title in the next 2 weeks of Raw, he's going to surpass John Cena's reign. So I find, his longest reign. So I find that interesting. Um, certainly. Because his next title defense most likely won't be for another 4 weeks until tables, ladders, and chairs. So that's looking like that's how things are gonna go. Um, now we had, and then of course we had an interesting segment, no doubt, with Big Show and Sheamus. Sheamus coming out, set to face Damian Sandow. He comes out with the same steel chair that he beat Big Show with, countless times with. He carries that chair with him to the ring. I thought was a nice touch. It's dented and, looking crooked. Um, like not the best chair to sit on. Um, and he sounds ticked off. He sounds a little more brutal. Um, and Big Show comes out, and he sounds ticked off and brutal. Big Show here at his best, for sure. And Sheamus sounding his best here on the mic too. These guys, trying to talk over each other, bickering. Sheamus in the ring, Big Show at the stage. This is what I like. This guy's trying to. It felt close to real, which is what I like. What I like to hear. They pulled off a good, good promo here against each other, and I'm looking forward to see what else these guys do in the coming episode of SmackDown, and of course next week on Raw. So good stuff there, which I think will set up another good match between these two at tables, ladders, and chairs. All right, and that'll bring us to the third part of TW Wrestling Talk for this Thanksgiving week. Um, we're going to discuss. First, I'm going to discuss, address the speculation that, I'm going to answer. Did I believe that John Cena actually tweaked his, seriously tweaked his knee, last night on Raw, when when chasing after Ziggler and getting out of the ring, it appeared he had legitimately had a bad landing and limped his way back, after Ziggler up the ramp to the backstage. And thoughts on this? I got to be honest. I mean, well, this segment first of all was, um, to me, just kind of, along with the one at Survivor Series with Vicky Guerrero and AJ, was throwaway. It was rubbish to me. It was, you know, they have AJ say how, they have these doctored photos that Vicky Guerrero's, showing everybody. But if you ask me, it's obvious that the photos that AJ showed of Vicky Guerrero were doctored too. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell that they're that 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 the Funkasaurus and Vicky Guerrero weren't really in what appeared to be a hotel room. I mean, you could tell the shadow, the light and shade effects, um, were non-existent. So you could clearly tell those photos were doctored up as well. So, at least have them be real photos if you're gonna, if they're gonna have AJ accuse um, doctored footage coming from Vicky Guerrero, because those photos clearly look doctored. So it really made for silly stuff. And John Cena coming out and making out. I mean, some people enjoy that. I mean, you know, it was unpredictable. That's fine with me. But I was more intrigued by, and I'm talking about more here, is the Cena getting out of the ring, um, and limping after Ziggler. And I gotta be honest, I thought when I saw him limping, I thought, and I didn't hear Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole really say anything about it. I thought this was, a legitimate injury. That Cena, tweaked himself here, tweaked his knee or ankle or whatever. Um, because these guys are on the road all the time. I figured this could be one of those things where it just gives all of a sudden. That's how sometimes these injuries happen. They you don't feel it, but it gives, and then something you do the simplest thing, and you push. There's a growing pain in your ankle that you don't know about, and then suddenly you get in the car, you step on the gas, and oh, it just pops, and you know, I thought that was one of these things here. Perhaps, perhaps there is a bit of reality here in this angle, um, but most likely this is mostly a work. Especially once they were backstage showing Cena's knee getting wrapped, and of course later on they had an interesting brawl in the locker room and in the restroom. Um, Dolph Ziggler taking it to John Cena, knocking down the walls of the bathroom stalls, and so that was pretty good. So it's setting up, I think, an interesting, further setting up an interesting, a good feud here, where it appears they're going to face the tables, ladders, and chairs. And with Cena having this, apparent injury, I think is good. I think it's going to help Dolph Ziggler pick up a win here at tables, ladders, and chairs over John Cena, which I think is good. And I think his win at Survivor Series. I think this is good for Dolph Ziggler. A good time for him to win, get a win over John Cena. Um, which I think this kind of momentum for Dolph Ziggler can seg nicely into him becoming WWE champion, or I'm sorry, World Heavyweight Champion, shortly down the road, perhaps in the coming months, whenever that will be, whenever he cashes in. Um, I think that'll help seg nicely into that, and continue to help Dolph Ziggler looking good. I like how they're moving him. They're starting. Team Ziggler, him being like the captain and the guy that wins the match at the end of Survivor Series, and now him set looks like he's gonna face John Cena and possibly, perhaps get a win over John Cena. Given this, Cena could be banged up here. Um, whether there's some legitimacy to, you know, to that or not, whether there's some kayfabe in there, um, I think that's good. I think it's, they're building up Ziggler to eventually be World Heavyweight Champion. I think they're doing a good job of that.